can the government of Canada ever run out of money? Well, the simple answer to that is no, because the Bank of Canada is going to basically invent money for them. Now, in a normal situation, it basically happens like this. The Bank of Canada holds an auction where it sells bonds or treasury bills, and it normally sells this to investors, banks, brokers, etc., but it typically buys about 20% for itself. So that means that the Government of Canada buys 20% of the debt from itself, and the assets go on the Canadian government side, and the liability goes on the Bank of Canada side. So it basically holds the debt for the government, even though they're kind of the same institution, but that's beside the point at this juncture. Now, again, 20% is in a normal situation, but right now this is not a normal situation. You can kind of think of it like a situation where you have your credit cards and they're maxed out because you spent pretty frivolously, but now you have a genuine emergency, and so you're going to have to pull from somewhere. So maybe you just take out a new card, and imagine you could just keep on taking out new cards and racking up debt as much as possible. Now, no one is saying that this debt is not necessarily needed, because there's obviously things that the government is responsible for because they shut people down. They obviously have an obligation to assist and manage the economy because they're directly interfering, again, for a positive reason, for a reason that they have to, but they're directly interfering. So there's a lot of argument to be made that they're going to need to get involved. But the question I have here is that many politicians are calling for more lockdown measures while at the same time calling for additional spending programs to keep the economy going. The Prime Minister himself said that the provinces shouldn't have to choose between people's health and the economy because the federal government is supporting businesses. Now, that is problematic because, again, the Government of Canada is simply going to invent the amount of money that is needed to cover these bills. The question is, though, a two-parter. Number one is, who is going to pay this money back, and what is the invention of all this new money going to do to the economy? Well, if you've studied even basic economics, you know that an increase in the money supply, so the total amount of money in our system, an increase in the amount of money in the system is going to basically cause a high amount of inflation to occur as you produce more and more money. Now, inflation is something that most people, especially if you grew up or became an adult more recently, that's not something you're necessarily used to dealing with because interest rates have been fairly low. The prime interest rate, which is the rate that banks buy money from the government, has typically been at 1, 2%, very, very low digits. You can get a lot of loans, 0%, 1.9%, etc. If you bought a car recently, you might have got a really great deal on financing. So people are really not used to paying more than 5% for things. But what happens if you have a property and you suddenly have to renegotiate your mortgage because the rates are either fixed for 5 years or maybe variable, but it's still a term for a couple of years? The interest rate could suddenly shoot up to 10, 20%. That could affect your payment by hundreds, perhaps even thousands of dollars, depending on what we're talking about and how much the principal amount that you borrowed is. Now, this is, again, a larger problem that people seem to be ignoring because right now the focus is on the immediate, and that is really just a factor of the way that the political system works. The government doesn't necessarily have to worry what is going to happen 5 or 10 years down the road, maybe even 2 years down the road. They are really concerned with the here and the now. And so that's why Justin Trudeau keeps on promising provinces that they don't have to choose between people's health and the economy. But it's not really a real choice, because if you pay attention to what's going on in the economic system, you'll know that you cannot simply print money. There are historical precedents. I don't even need to name them. You probably know. There are historical precedents to just simply printing money until you, until you pay off your problem. That does not seem to work. So a lot of stuff we do need to pay attention to, and as Canadians, we do need to ask our government what is going on and make sure that we are being responsible with our economic planning, because ultimately this could cause a larger disaster, not just for the businesses which are now shut down during lockdown, but it will have an effect on every single person in this country, and that is not something that we'll be able to handle. If interest rates go up to like 10, 20, even 30%, we will definitely be in huge and serious problem. So a lot of stuff to think about, but thank you so much for watching. For True North, I'm Sam Eskenasi, and don't forget to subscribe.